Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the webinar. We will start in 1 minute. Thank you for the patience. Okay, thank you very much for joining the webinar. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the 360 Compliance Bluetooth Global Market Access webinar. My name is Nativ, and I will be the host and the presenter in this webinar. The webinar is presented by 360 Compliance, a global regulatory testing and certification test laboratory for EMC, wireless approval, product safety certification, sustainability, and wireless type approval testing certification. 360 Compliance provides testing and certification from start to certificate with the fixed cost and the dedicated project manager and with the best time to market and very competitive cost. So before we start on the webinar, I'll give a very short introduction about the company, a few words, and then we could start very quickly. As you can see, also 360 test sites globally, and this has allowed us to provide lab scheduling very fast. On above that, we have more than 100 local representatives globally, almost in every country, to cover all global market access requirements in almost 200 countries for wireless homologation or type approval. 360 Compliance handling more than 200 projects annually for international company, from corporate to startup, for all issues which relates to regulatory requirements for electronic product, including EMC, radio, safety, sustainability, type approvals, with emphasis on type approval homologation in 200 countries. You can also refer for more information to the Global Market Access page in our website, when you can reach and get some data under the knowledge database to see requirement per country under this link. In addition, there is also the blog in the company webpage under this link, when you can see updates which we are providing monthly in our newsletter. And that's in general, so thank you for your patience. The agenda of the seminar, now let's start with this. The webinar will touch base of Bluetooth wireless certification based on two case scenarios, chip and the certified module. An explanation will be given for the advantage and for the disadvantages for using chip or module in the webinar in reference to regulatory aspects. On above of it, we will also touch base of the Bluetooth SIG qualification process as it is enforced by the Bluetooth SIG scheme. So these are the main issue. The main focus will be on the CE, the FCC, and we can see how it could be leveraged for global market access for many other countries as well. In the end of the seminar, it will take around 1 week, more or less. We will put some of the slides in our website under training, as you can see here, so we can see or download. And in any case, if you cannot see it, you can contact us by email, and we will be more than happy to advise or consult on any issue with no cost. Okay, so let's start with the first slide. The first chapter that we'll discuss will include an introduction to the regulation or to the regulatory requirement versus the industrial requirement for a Bluetooth device. And it also includes a brief description on FCC and on CE as the main requirement in the global market access arena. So when we are looking on testing versus regulatory versus industry requirements, we can see there are two main roads, regulatory and industry. Regulatory refer to country law supervised by the custom or subjected to market surveillance. Example, any wireless product worldwide should be monitored because there is a spectrum allocation by the Ministry of Communication by per country. So when we are talking about regulatory, this is a regulatory or mandatory requirement by the governments. And as for example, we can see here type of regulatory requirements such as FCC, MIC in Japan, RCM in Australia, Anatel Brazil, ICASA South Africa, KCC in Korea, and so on and so on. We, by the way, can provide all of this, and we have, as I mentioned, a local representative in 100 countries. When we are discussing about industry requirement, it's more related to business or issue which relates to IP, that if you're using a kind of a mark and you want to use it on your product, you have to follow the scheme requirement, or if it is trade license, to follow the requirement of the IP, or if you would like to engage with a company or MNO like AT&T, so you have to follow PTCRB or to add Bluetooth SIG mark on the product, you have to follow and to add the Bluetooth SIG certification qualification process, in which we will describe in the end of the webinar, as the last chapter. As a framework on what we are going to discuss, we will touch base in reference to three main items. One, target markets, which are, first of all, the European Union market and the North America FCC, Federal Communication Commission. And we will explain on how we can leverage or use both FCC and CE requirement to leverage it for homologation type approval in many other countries. The second issue will be what will be the distance from the body. We will discuss mainly on product with a distance which is lower than 20 centimeters. And the third one will be the reference between chip or model. We will take as a reference in two scenarios. One is chip, one of model. And we will explain what are the difference and the advantages or disadvantages. But in both cases, we will discuss only on BLE. Okay, we will not discuss Bluetooth 5.0, Bluetooth EDR or others. The main issue will be the discussion under the technology of Bluetooth Low Energy as a chip or as a module. So, in order to get deep to understand what regulatory is looking for, we will give a short explanation and update on the FCC and the CE RED requirement, and then we will take it from there to understand how does it impact on using a BLE model as a chip or as a model. So, when discussing on the North American requirement, on the FCC requirement for a intentional transmitter, it stands for the following: for EMC testing, for radio testing, and certification. Since radio in USA is required not only testing but also a certification under the TCB, in order to put the FCC ID into register under the FCC website. And SAR test or SAR MPE assessment, which for Bluetooth it's less relevant because the duty cycle in Bluetooth is very low in BLE, and in most of the cases, the power, the output power is lower than 10 dBm. So in this case, SAR is not required, even for the distance from the body is less than 20 centimeters, but still SAR assessment report is required under FCC Part 15.247, as we will see shortly. On above of all of it, the FCC rule is enforced. The FCC SDOC, Supply Declaration of Conformity Rule, is enforced as from November 2nd, 2018, and importers, manufacturer, and supplier that would like to distribute within the USA must follow it. So, short explanation about the FCC SDOC and why it is important to understand it. The FCC SDOC, it's under the equipment authorization procedure, as you can see here. And it means that as a procedure is required, the party responsible for compliance, which it could be the manufacturer, the importer, or the distributor, to ensure that the equipment complies with the appropriate technical standards, and that the responsible party, who must be located in the United States, means that even if the manufacturer is located outside of the United States, the one that should be responsible under the SDOC is someone that have a commercial engagement with the manufacturer, and it should be located in the state. Is not required to file an equipment authorization application form, or if there is no such a local representative, it should be submitted to TCB. On other words, to make it more simplified, okay, FCC puts the legal liabilities on the supplier, and that's include also for product or devices which are integrated already with FCC certified components. So the manufacturer or the importer or the distributor which would like to enter the US market should put the SDOC declaration in their user manual or in their website, and it should state that they are following all the FCC requirements, even if it's for digital circuitry without radio. And if there is for a product integrated with radio, BLE in this case, okay, and the BLE, let's assume it is a module which is already FCC certified, the manufacturer, which is integrates the product in the host device, must make the appropriate test or verification to make sure that it is integrated under the FCC ID guarantee limitation, because now it's under its liability. And it's not the liability of the vendor or the company who has developed the product. Okay, for CE, it stands for FCC, for EMC testing, for radio testing under the Radio Equipment Directive RED, which based on ETSI standards mainly, and for SAR test or RF exposure, similar to situation as for FCC, since the output power is low than 10 dBm, and the duty cycle is low for BLE, only SAR assessment report, which is called MPE, under specific standard which we will show in later slides. And when a notified body type examination is required, it's not always required, but when it is required, the notified body will ask for sure for safety, because there is a correlation between the safety directive to the RED directive. On above of all of it, the manufacturer should issue the EU Declaration of Conformity and state that he is following all the relevant directive and all the relevant standard under the directive in reference to the intent of use of the device and the technology that it used. Okay, so now after we will give a quick and short explanation about the frame of the webinar of the Bluetooth we are going to discuss and what is FCC and CIA stands for, we will touch more deeply about what are the difference or the advantage or disadvantage for using chip or using a module. So in case of a BLE chip case study, we can see that the chipset is required for a full certification as following, both for EMCE, both for FCC. So EMC, it is required, radio, it is required, RF exposure. For both of them, In safety, it depends. In CE, in case a notified body type examination is required, then safety will be a must. For FCC, for North America, safety, in most of the cases, it's not a mandatory requirement, therefore it does not require. So let's take an example here. In our example, we can see that we have a board. The board is integrated with 2.4 gigahertz BLE chipset, and the intent of use is distance higher or lower than 20 centimeters. So the question will be, what will be the relevant standard to follow for this kind of model? So based on the factors that we have explained, we can see that those will be the relevant standard to follow under EMC, FCC Part 15B, ICS 003 for Canada, under IECD, which is the equivalent entity to FCC, and under CE, the 301-489-1 or -17 for EMC standard. Of course, there could be also additional standard for EMC under the CE directive based on the intent of use of the device, but we are generally looking only on as a BLE as a technology. Under the radio, we can see there is FCC Part 15C. Full certification, testing in TCB application will be required in order to put the FCC ID and to register under the FCC website, and also 47 CFR Part 2.1023 for RF exposure SAR assessment is also required. Similarly, we can see the similarity in Canada, RSS 247 or RSS-102 issue 5 to RF exposure testing. And under the CE, the relevant standard, which for MPA calculation or SAR assessment are 624.79 or 623.11. On above all of this, as mentioned previously, FCC supply declaration of conformity, it is a must, and in Europe, EU, DOC, or notified body option is optional, also required. So the next case study is about a BLE as a module. We assume there is a module, the module is integrated with all the certifications which are needed, and the main issue if it can be used or not. And many customers we are working with assume that when they are using a module, they have no liabilities. As we saw and under the SDOC, FCC, Supply Declaration of Conformity requirement, this is not true, even for legal point of view. On above it, from technical and regulatory perspective, it depends. So model certification depends if we need to perform any kind of certification on the following topics. For EMC, it's always required because EMC is performed for a host device, not for a module. So it will be performed for your product integrated with a module for the relevant EMC standard, which in reference to the technology. Okay, 301-489-7 will be relevant here again. RF exposure, always relevant. Safety, same case as before. And radio, it depends on three main factors, which puts the FCC and the CE. The main factors that the FCC or the CE are looking for, let's start with the CE first, are the type of the antenna, the RF exposure evaluation, and if does the notified body EU type examination is required or not. So when starting with the antenna, the main question is, are we using the same antenna as using the model certification, or are you going to use a customized antenna, which was not part of the model? In case it's the same antenna, the full rate model RF test result will be sufficient. In case it will be a different antenna, but again, even smaller than one using the model certification, in any rate model RF conducted test results only, and radiated spurious emission test will also be required. And above all of it, the manufacturer must perform RF radiated tests. The second factor is the RF exposure evaluation, or what called MPE or SAR assessment, which is always required under the CE versus the relevant standard EN 62311 or EN 602479. Using one of the standards depending on the technical parameters such as output voltage, distance, and so on, as can be seen in the table in front of us. So if someone has a question about this, you could send me an email and we can explain when it's requested to use each one of the standards based on the scenario of the integration of the device on your product. The third scenario is when we are using or would like to follow a notified body type examination type approval. Okay, so if it will be required, the notified body will ask for sure for the test report of the certified model from the vendor. Many of the vendors are not allowed to share the data, and sometimes it could be a kind of an issue. So this is something to be taken into consideration. Since notified body is not a mandatory issue like the TCB in the state, it depends mainly on commercial aspect if notified body is required by you or not. Okay, we've discussed about the CE. Now let's see what FCC is taking as a factor for a module. So the factor is similar, but the requests are different. The first factor is the antenna. The FCC look on if the antenna is the same type. Are using monopole chip FIPA with a gain smaller than the module certification. And in this case, it's the same scenario. Fully enriched modular RF test results will be sufficient. But if there is a different type of antenna with a gain smaller than radiated spurious emission at least, or out of band spurious emission test will be required. This is very simple to check because either one of you can check under the FCC website, under the KDB knowledge database, under the FCC ID. So if we'll take an example, the Blue Giga BLE device module or the LS Research S-sub-LE-X, we can see there is FCC ID. So when entering the FCC website under the FCC ID, we can see under the TCF, the technical construction file, which is part of the application and submission to the FCC, what type of antenna has been used and what is the maximum antenna gain. And based on it, we can decide if it's required to do any kind of additional test or not. The second issue which the FCC is taking into consideration is the RF exposure. The FCC defines RF exposure in reference to two intent of use, mobile or portable. Mobile device is a device with a separation distance of at least 20 centimeters from the body, but it's maintained in the antenna body of the user nearby. Portable device is a product with an antenna device is within 20 centimeters of the body of the user, as you can see here. So the FCC under the KDB, the knowledge database, is a strict regulation. What are the limits for mobile device and for portable device? How does it imply on using a model which is certified only? So let's take a look. For modular approval condition, the host device, which is integrated with the Bluetooth module, okay, must be used in the same condition like the module has been certified. In any other case, the integrator which use a module and the host device is not used on the same intent of use, mobile or portable, as the device which already has been certified, it will have to perform class 2 permissive change under the FCC. So if we will take a look at this table, we can see we have here the Bluetooth module, if it was certified as a mobile or as a portable, and the device, which is the host device integrated with the Bluetooth module, what will be the intent of use, as a mobile or as a portable? So we can see that in all scenarios, except that the one that the Bluetooth module is certified as a mobile device with a distance higher than 20 centimeter, but the host device is used as a portable device with a distance lower than 20 centimeter, there will be a need for class 2 permissive change that need to be performed by the host device, by the manufacturer. Okay, and in this case, also the vendor of the Bluetooth, okay, will have to give a grant to change the permission under the FCC website to the host device manufacturer. Let's take an example to understand it more simply. So, in this case, we have a board with the following criteria: 2.4 gigahertz BLE, intent of use distance lower than 20 centimeter, portable condition. The FCC ID of the device is TFB 1002, as we can see. Under the FCC ID, we can see that under the grantee condition of the FCC ID, it stated that the filling meet the SAR threshold exclusion and therefore can be used either as a mobile or as a portable configuration. So since our end device is also used as a portable configuration and distance lower than 20 centimeter, and the module certified also as a portable configuration, then radio test will not be required. Okay, still, EMC test, RF exposure assessment will be required, SDOC will be required. Okay, but the radio test can be waived. When looking on another example, in this case, we have a board with the following criteria, same as before, but in this case, under the FCC ID, as we can see here, QOQ BLE 112, we can see that under this ID, it stated that it is designed to be used 20 centimeter from the person, so it cannot be a portable device. In this case, the model vendor must agree to provide confirmation to perform class 2 permissive change authorization letter. So if we will take a look on the table again, we can see that EMC is always required, but in this case, there are a lot of radio tests to do. The model vendor letter that he needs to get as a confirmation to change, because the FCC ID was issued under the model vendor ID and the company name. There is a need to do FCC class 2 permissive change, which includes also testing and submission, TCF technical construction file, to the TCB, to perform FCC RF exposure tests, and there is a scenario. So using a model which is already certified, it's not a guarantee that you can use it as is. And since there are also the FCC SDOC liability from November 2nd, 2018, all of the liabilities on the legal liabilities are put now on the manufacturer, importer, and distributor, and not on the vendor of the product, of the model. Okay, after we have explained briefly about FCC and CE, we will see what does it require in the global market access. As we can see in the global market access, we have almost 200 countries. We have 54 countries in Africa, 48 in Asia, 44 in Europe, which also in Europe, even though there is a CE, there are a requirement of the postal communication in Europe, and there are national deviation when using the wireless product, which need to be taken into consideration. 33 countries in Latin America, 14 Oceania, and so on. So since the spectrum allocation is controlled and governed by the government, homologation or certification under each local Ministry of Communication is required for a wireless product. With 360 compliance can provide type approval in almost any country worldwide except of Iran. All the countries that we, in the map that you can see, we can provide solution. and we have 100 local representatives worldwide that can provide any kind of certification that you need. So let's understand, firstly, what is the radio global market access and how does the C in the FCC helps us? So we have several words. The first word is full testing. Full testing means that those countries has their own standard and they will not accept any other standard which is not issued by them. For instance, CE is for European country, FCC for United States. The FCC will not accept CE standard, and under the CE you cannot get the FCC standard. Similar in Japan. Japan, there are a RIP standard under MIC or TELEC, and in Japan you have to follow only a RIP standard. Still, if laboratories or countries have MRA, mutual recognition agreement, and have ISO 17025 under entities such as A2LA, NVLAP, and so on, and the tests or the standard are covered under the ISO 17025, even though it could be done in any test lab that is covered, that has an MRA with the authorities, and is ISO 17025 accredited by ILAC, A2LA, NVLAP, and so on. And this test can be done anywhere worldwide, as long as the test lab is accredited. We in P6 compliance, we have 5 test sites. 2 of the test sites are fully 17025 accredited, and we can perform all kinds of tests under full accreditation. The second scenario is in-country testing. In-country testing, it means countries which has their own standards, but they will require to perform all the tests only in the country. For instance, China, SRRC, South Korea, KCC, Brazil, Anatel, and so on. So in this case, only in-country tests. And the third road called homologation. Homologation meaning documentation leveraging from FCC or EU report, in some case with partial testing, and in some case without testing it at all. And this is the majority of the countries. Majority of the countries will accept CE or FCC report with partial or without testing it all. But still, in each one of the countries worldwide, a submission to the local Ministry of Communication is required and mandatory, and it should be done by a local representative located in the same country, which get an engagement and represent the company that would like to register under the same country. So our local representative worldwide have the direct connection to the Ministry of Communication, and we can provide, beside of type homologation and testing, also local representative services. Okay, so let's make a short zoom in on CE and FCC impact. So we can see in orange, most of the South America and Central America will accept FCC standards. In green, most of the countries in Custom Union, Gulf countries, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and some of the countries in South America will accept the CE standards. Still, there could be a national deviation, and our discussion is only on the wireless standards, not on safety, energy, or other standards which are also applicable. When we are looking, zoom in on the North, Central, and South America, we can see a list of the countries, and we can see which of the countries, such as Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, will not accept any kind of test from other country and will ask for in-country tests. So we can provide this. When we are looking on the other side of the world, we can see that there also, in some of the countries like China, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, there are specific standards. In China and South Korea, they will ask for in-country tests. In Japan, in-country test is not required as long as there is MRA, mutual recognition agreements. So we can provide it as well for all the countries in Asia. And if we will take as a zoom in on the whole process, we can see that in-country tests required mainly in the following countries: China, South Korea, Anatel, Brazil, Taiwan. Full testing, which not depends on CFCC in countries such as Japan, Mexico, Argentina. There are also other countries. Countries which will accept leveraging of CE or either FCC test report with documentation, technical construction file, and with local representative submission only, will be most of the countries such as ICASA, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Hong Kong, IMDA, Singapore, Thailand, Mexico, in some cases, not in most of the cases, because Mexico in some cases could ask for in-country tests. It depends, for instance, if it will be a frequency open device or not. And some of the countries that will ask leveraging based on C and FCC report with partial testing could be Malaysia, Australia, and Thailand. So we see Thailand in two places: leveraging with documentation, leveraging with partial testing. So this is a good case study because it depends on the class of the device and the intent of use. So the class of the device and the intent of use of the device also have an implication. So in some cases, it could be only leveraging of test report. In other cases, it could be leveraging with a specific condition based on the intent of use of the device and the area of use, okay? And partial testing may be required as well. Again, with compliance can provide type pool certification in 200 countries, and we provide a full turnkey services for FCC, for CE testing certification in our accredited test labs. Okay, so we've discussed about the Bluetooth certification for CE, for FCC, for chip, for module, and now we can leverage it to the global market access. So this is, if you have a product that you would like to launch it in many countries, the best way to do is start with us from the beginning, that we will help you to define the strategy, how to save costs, how to remove market barriers, and to understand how to get to the market faster. Okay, the last chapter that we will touch shortly will be the Bluetooth qualification. The Bluetooth qualification is enforced under the Bluetooth SIG Special Interest Group. And the Bluetooth SIG, you have to understand it is an IP right, it's a trademark. You cannot use the Bluetooth mark either on your product, on your commercial brochures, on your website without registered under the Bluetooth SIG scheme. So to sell, brand, and so on, you have to have a license agreement under the Bluetooth SIG. Bluetooth SIG does not depend if it is chipset or its module. It depends of the layers of the module or the chip. So when we are talking about Bluetooth chip or module, we always have three layers. The first layer is the RF physical layer, which required in general testing like RF tests, and DTM tests, direct test mode, or blocking tests. So in case, for instance, that you're using a certified module for chip, all the tests in most of the case will be required, but in case you're using a module chip, but you are using a customized antenna, then you will have to perform RF physical tests, and you will have to implement DTM and to download it from the vendor such as Nordic or TI under the library of the chip, and to implement it as a software because the tests are automated. There is the stack layer and there the profile layer. So assuming you're using a profile, like let's assume a heartbeat monitoring, okay, for running. And you now are customized one of the profiles for advertising, then you will have also to perform a profile testing. So in order to define which type of testing will be required for Bluetooth certificate qualification, it depends on the QDID of each one of the layers. So if we'll take, for an example, this kind of product, it's from TI, I think, we can see that the layer, each one of them have a declaration ID or QDID. And under each one of the QDID controller, which is the RFI, the host, stack, and the profile, we have what does it include and what does not include. And if there are any kind of modification or changes, okay, then test will be required. The process in Bluetooth qualification includes 12 steps, as we can see here: TPG, test plan generator, SIG, PTS, and UPS. A Bluetooth project concept, Bluetooth registration under the SIG, and so on. So what we are doing this step in two phases. First of all, we provide the test services in our laboratories, but in addition, we also allocate a project manager, that the project manager is opening all the qualification process in front of our test lab and in front of the Bluetooth SIG, the TPG, and the PTS process, and he also register under the end product listing certification, the product under the SIG, because this is quite a very complicated process. The SIG is also asking for listing fees annually, so we also help to define the strategy to our customer, how to pay the minimum fees, and how to define it when listing the product. Okay, so I hope that you get more info and knowledge from this webinar. As mentioned, in the end of the webinar, you will receive an email with my contact details, so you can feel free to contact us for any question. We do not charge it for the first time. So any question that you have regarding Bluetooth certification, but also for other regulatory aspects such as cellular and so on, we can we'll be more than happy to provide. As mentioned, we are providing INSI, radio, safety, sustainability, global market access in almost 200 countries with the fixed cost. We are the only one which providing fixed cost from start to certificate. We are the only one that provide a full dedicated project manager that proactively push to complete the project. And we provide the best time to market in our test labs with full technical support, including in case of pre-testing and debugging. And we are also very competitive in our prices. So thank you very much for joining the webinar. And for any question, you're welcome to contact us. Thank you.